Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Yes, really another video about Black Lotus. I really want to drive the point home because at the moment prices are still going up and up for them. At this point I think many people who watch my channel know how I feel about this, and we've talked about various points like no, you don't need Flask to clear raid, yes they should be at least somewhat rare, and so on. It's time to really push for a change in terms of how accessible Black Lotus are in the game, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because at this point in time there's only two groups of players who I can see not wanting the change, those being classic purists who I can only assume are still playing the game because they don't want to play a non-Blizzard server, or people who have a massive investment currently sitting in Black Lotus. And it's no wonder Flasks are so expensive, they can easily make up around a quarter of a gear player's health, mana pool or spell power. I've used this example before, I'm going to do it again because it really shows just how good they are. So in Classic, Flask of Supreme Power, 150 spell power. TBC, Flask of Pure Death, 80 spell power. Wrath of the Lich King, Flask of the Frostworm, 125 spell power. In TBC they had to remove 80 spell power from Flask of Supreme Power so that they could add new ones in that were better than it. If Flask of Supreme Power was never nerfed, we would not have had a better Flask until Cataclysm came out. Think about that for a moment, it's insane. Distilled Wisdom in Classic is 2000 mana, in TBC it's 650. Titans is 1200 health, in TBC it's 400. I mean, you can't make this up. Sure, it was new grounds at the time and Flasks are really overpowered in terms of what they give. This is why it's important that they are to a certain degree rare and can't be popped every single raid by every single player, because it would only serve to trivialize content even further than what we are already dealing with on our 1.12 server. So how rare are they at the moment? Well, funnily enough, I don't think theoretically they are too rare considering how fast they are picked, that is. It's just that players are making sure that these Lotus never get to the auction house. Let me explain. Sorry if I'm repeating myself with some of these points, it's relevant to what I'm going to be saying later. Lotus spawn in one of four zones: Silithus, Winter Spring, Burning Steppes and Eastern Plaguelands. There is around 8 to 10 spawn locations per zone. Each zone has its own timer, so it's like there are 4 clocks ticking at once. As for when one will become available, they do not all share a spawn timer. The respawn time is 45 to 75 minutes or 1 hour on average. So do the maths, and that would mean around 96 Lotus are available per day per server, but that's assuming an average spawn time and that they are picked instantly. If I say one is picked every 65 minutes instead of 60, and I think I'm lowballing it here, I believe Lotus are picked far quicker than within 5 minutes on the majority of servers. I would say 2 to 3, but for argument's sake I'm taking numbers which are on the low end here, okay? So if we consider these new numbers, that removes about 8 Lotus from the pool of what's picked per day, giving us a possible 88 Black Lotus per day per server. I'm going to remove another 8 from that number again, so I'm absolutely below how many are picked per day, and call it 80 Lotus picked per day per server. 80 Lotus a day, 560 a week, 2,400 in a 30-day month. And if you were curious, if I did use numbers that I think are accurate, which would be around 90 to 92 a day, that's closer to 2,700 Black Lotus per month. Okay then, over to Ironforge.pro, as we always do. They did an update recently, which I'm a big fan of, so good job there guys. What can we see here? Well, for once, the numbers here are going to be far more accurate than what we're usually comparing them to, because who is interested in Black Lotus? Players who are raiding. How does Ironforge.pro get its info? From Warcraft logs. Who puts in from Warcraft logs? Raiders do. So for once, I think we're seeing at least 85% or so accurate numbers. As for the potential pool of players who may consider flasking, our big boy top end servers in North America are packing 10k players on them, and as we can see going down the realms, which are PvP, PvE, EU, NA, overall numbers are high, really high in fact for servers. There's a couple over 9k, a few over 8k, and there are many over 7,000 players showing as actively being recorded on Warcraft logs over the past 2 weeks, aka these are actual active players in World of Warcraft who are engaging in content that's being logged, mostly raiding. So how do we factor that a potential 2,400 Lotus are being gathered into a server with a population of 10k? I don't think it's as simple as saying there is enough Lotus for a quarter of the population. Lotus are gathered over time, it's not like there's suddenly over 2,000 at the end of the month suddenly made available. But still, even for a server at 7,500 active raiders, there should be enough in circulation per month to accommodate 1/3 of those people. And that's if everybody flasked every single week. And as we go down with this volume of Lotus compared to server sizes, it actually doesn't sound like a wholly unreasonable amount of Lotus to support the numbers that we have. I mean, back in vanilla, people were not picking them this fast or efficiently, I can guarantee that, but but yes, there's obvious differences in terms of servers between now and then. So this begs the question, just where on earth are all the Black Lotus? I'll tell you where, they're not entering the marketplace at all. If you've seen the botting vid I did about Black Lotus farmers, that's how they're picked so fast. I did see a number of comments along the line of, how is this botting? Well, I don't know, good point I guess. Maybe some people just really enjoy playing 20 level 1 dead warriors for 24/7. Who knows? Get your tinfoil hats on, because I fully believe there are botting operations that have literally hundreds or even thousands of Lotus sitting on bankholds. Lotus that are never going to see the light of day unless they're bought for real money. This is so that prices on the auction house remain as high as they are now. There are already going to be players with so many stacks of Lotus that I bet even now if they stopped picking them and started to gradually sell them off, I don't think they could exhaust their stock before TBC came out. Think about it, 2,400 Lotus per month is on the low end, and how many players are really flasking who raid each week? Next to none. Why bother? You aren't going to pass or speed clear outside of the Dark Moon Fair week, so that's a maximum of 2 flasks per month, and that's if you're risking getting the opposite faction fair. They are totally unnecessary apart from being on the main tank, and yet the demand is massively, and I mean massively, outweighing the supply. People want to flask, it's fun. It feels good to have put that time into going into a raid and then just utterly crush it. To see numbers on your screen you couldn't imagine being possible, but at the moment it's tough because I fully believe we're being artificially held back. We need a world where your average casual WoW player has a legitimate and real chance to encounter Lotus out in the open world, because at the moment they don't at all. It's not even close. If you don't involve yourself in all these discussions or worry about raiding or anything, you could be forgiven for seeing a Black Lotus out in the world and actually thinking, what on earth is that herb? I've never seen it before. Is it for a quest or something? Not knowing you've just run past soon to be 1/3 of the cost of your epic riding. We need a much greater level of accessibility for Lotus to be picked by players just playing the game naturally, not dedicatedly farming it for hours on end or just purely botting it. And look, if you're a player that's been legitimately farming Lotus for some time, this is going to affect you too, and it sucks because you're getting them the way it was intended. But I think at this point you've done pretty well out of the whole situation up to this point. Server sizes are easily 3 to 4 times what they were in vanilla, and we have far larger number of players who take the game seriously and want to perform well. Even if they still make up a niche volume of players per server, they are the ones desperately after Flask. The quantity of Lotus available that worked in vanilla is not working in Classic. We need more, a lot more. However, I do think you have to be careful here. We don't want Flask to end up being too cheap. Imagine if they ended up being 20 or 30 gold. People would Flask in pre-made battlegrounds. That's a bit much. We don't want that either. I think Lotus need to be contained to their respective servers' economy. I strongly advise stopping players from transferring with any more than 1 stack of Lotus at an absolute maximum. As for Blizzard, this is a chance to not only make what I believe would be a very positive change for the community, but also crush a big sector of bots overnight. When I log on a low population server and do a /who in a zone where Lotus spawn and I see 30 level 1 warriors, I see the reason I'm going to have to farm for hours extra to be able to afford a Flask. Blizzard sees $450 a month. Blizzard, change Black Lotus spawns. This is too much at the moment, and on top of that, you have a whole variety of fixes that would work. Number 1, lower spawn times. You already did exactly this with Devil's Saw. I don't think it entirely solves the issues of people hoarding Lotus to keep them off the market though. It's still going to be tough for the average guy to encounter a Lotus because there's still quite a few locations where they appear, which can be easily camped. Number 2, add even more spawns. This is a good one. How many more? Loads more, instead of the 8 or however many there are at the moment. Make it 50, 60, 70 spawns. Make it completely impractical to try and camp the spawns, as there's just too much variance. You still need to lower spawn times in addition to doing this, however. Just making it more variable doesn't solve the issue in of itself. 3, dynamic spawns. If the argument that we need more Lotus because of larger servers, this seems to go hand in hand with it, especially if you are unable to transfer with Lotus. I mean, White Main is going to have an incomparably larger demand for Lotus compared to Soul Phase, for example. 4, make them work like arcane crystals as a rare spawn from picking other high level herbs, perhaps from Grom's Blood, Golden Samsung, Dreamfoil, Mountain Silver Sage, Plague Bloom, or Icecap. However, this kind of brings up the whole suddenly we can farm Black Lotus from inside an instance issue. May need some restrictions on that, or Diamorlease jump runs suddenly become the best gold maker in the game overnight. I mean, sure you could get arcane crystals from the same instance, but they're a lot more effort to get to. This could be a 5 reset an hour on any single character at all, just to pick the herbs in the immediate area, which do contain dream coil and Grom's blood. So yeah, I'm not too sure if this is the best idea actually. I think it'll crash the prices too hard unless you just can't get them inside instances. For me, ideally, this is what I think would bring the prices down and make Lotus more available without crashing their price too low. Number one, you need to stop people from transferring with over 1 stack of Black Lotus to any other server. Number two, add a massive new number of spawn points to zones where they can appear. Number three, introduce dynamic spawns if possible, if it's not just at least half the spawn timer. I'm not too sold on them working just like Arcane's because of how easily you can herb inside of instances. I don't think they should be that easy to get hold of. If it were only in the open world though, sure, I think that would be fine as an alternative option. I know this is a bit of a hot topic at the moment. I'm trying to push for some response from Blizzard prior to the AQ patch actually being announced. I'm confident that this will be a positive change for the vast majority of players and that it will be well received overall. It's also going to kill off a huge host of those server population boosting bots overnight. It's 2 birds with 1 stone. What's not to like about doing this? I'd love your feedback on my thoughts here. As always, I do try to appreciate the perspective of different players, but here I really don't see too many dissenters from this being a popular opinion. Maybe I'm wrong though, you'll have to let me know. And keep it civil below, I know how people get when you say the C word. Hope you guys are all keeping safe and well, and that you enjoyed this video. With all that said, I will see you all in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.